After planning and paying for my grandparents' anniversary party, I sat alone at the end of the table while they gave a toast thanking every single other grandchild by name. When I brought it up, my grandmother laughed and said, "Well, maybe if you were more like them, we'd remember you." I left before dessert. 5 years later, when they needed someone to manage their estate, my name was the only one on the legal papers. My name's Jake. I'm 34. The night that set everything in motion happened when I was 29. My grandparents were celebrating their 60th wedding anniversary, and I decided, stupidly maybe, that I wanted to do something really special for them. They were old school, married young, lived in Bloomington, Indiana their whole lives. Kind of the glue of the family, at least that's what people always said. Our family is big. 4 daughters, 3 sons, 17 grandkids. Every holiday was loud, crowded, full of the same recycled stories and the same fake smiles. I never felt like I belonged. Growing up, I was the quiet one. I didn't play sports, didn't go into business, didn't have kids. I work in IT. No one really understood what I did, so they didn't ask. But I still loved them. Especially my grandparents. Or I thought I did. So when their anniversary came up, I spent a month planning a full-on party. Reserved a private room at an old-school Italian place they liked, made a photo wall with their wedding pictures, printed a menu with a little message at the top from all the grandkids. I had to write it, no one else bothered, coordinated music, the cake, everything. It cost me over $3,000. I put it on 2 credit cards and told myself it would be worth it. Day of the party, I got there 2 hours early to set things up. I was sweating, stressed out, and barely ate anything. But once everyone showed up, it seemed worth it. My grandmother hugged me and said, "Oh Jake, this is lovely." I felt a little spark of something. Like maybe this time, they'd really see me. Fast forward to the dinner. We're at a long table, 30-something people deep. My grandfather stands up with his wine glass and starts giving a toast. It's rambling but kind of sweet. He starts naming all the grandkids one by one. To Brian, making us proud in the Marines. Everyone claps. To Danielle, raising such wonderful boys. More clapping. To Lacey and Jason, always so ambitious. And on and on. Cousin after cousin. Sophie, Chris, even Amy, who lives in Arizona and only sees them once every few years. I kept waiting for my name. He finished. My grandmother stood up next to him and added, "We're just so proud of all of you. What a blessing it is to have such amazing grandchildren." That was it. No mention of me. Not a word. I sat at the far end of the table, the one closest to the kitchen. My chair didn't even match the others. It was some folding chair the restaurant had dragged in last minute. I sat there with my fork in my hand and my mouth tight shut. Nobody looked at me. Everyone was laughing and clapping. I waited for the end of the toast. Then I got up, quietly walked over to my grandmother, leaned down, and said, "You forgot me." She looked at me like she didn't understand. I said, "You didn't mention me. I planned this whole thing." She smiled. Not a kind smile. The kind people give when they're trying to brush you off. And she said, "Well, maybe if you were more like them, we'd remember you." I don't remember walking out. I just know that I didn't say a word. I took my jacket and left before the dessert came out. I don't even remember what it was. Cheesecake maybe. Nobody called that night. The next day, I had 2 voicemails. One from my mom, "You really embarrassed everyone. That was childish, Jake." One from Uncle Stan, "You've always been dramatic. This isn't about you." I didn't answer either of them. I cut off most contact after that. No Thanksgiving, no Christmas. I stopped replying to group texts. A few cousins unfollowed me on social media. No one seemed to care. I went to therapy. I changed jobs. I got my finances in order. I learned to stop trying to impress people who didn't see me. I thought that chapter was closed. Then, 5 years later, I got a letter from a law firm in Bloomington. At first, I thought it was spam. But it had my name, and it mentioned my grandparents. My grandfather had passed away 3 weeks earlier. My grandmother was in hospice. And somehow, I was listed as the sole executor of their estate. No co-executors. No backups. Just me. I called the law firm to confirm. The woman on the phone said, "Yes, Mr. Whitmore updated his documents about 6 months before his passing. He specifically named you." I hadn't seen or spoken to them in 5 years. Later, I found out from the attorney that in the final year of his life, my grandfather had distanced himself from most of the family. Some of my cousins had started using him as a piggy bank. Brian needed help with car repairs, turns out it was a DUI. Danielle asked him to co-sign a mortgage on a house twice what she could afford. Sophie hit him up for business capital for an online boutique that never existed. I guess he got tired of it. He changed everything. He made me the legal executor, and there was a signed, notarized letter included in the file. It said, "Jake, if you're reading this, I'm sorry we made you feel unseen. You were always the quiet one, but you were always steady. You never asked for anything. I'm leaving this to you because I trust you. Please handle it with care. Don't let them tear each other apart. Love, Grandpa." I sat in my car for 20 minutes after reading that. And then the messages started. "Lacey, wait, what the hell is going on? My mom, you need to call me right now. Danielle, Grandma is really upset. She said you manipulated him. Is that true? Aunt Rita, he was sick when he signed those papers. This isn't fair." I didn't answer. I went to the house a week later. It was sad. Dusty, silent. Most of the furniture was older than me. I walked through each room slowly, taking inventory. I had a legal checklist from the law firm. Everything had to be documented, valued, processed. They had a surprising amount of assets. 2 paid-off properties. One was the house in Bloomington, the other a small rental in nearby Ellettsville. A decent investment account. A few old but valuable collectibles. Grandpa had been into coins. Life insurance. And now, all decisions had to go through me. Not because I wanted it. But because they chose me. And this time, no one could ignore me. Things got worse fast. After I started going through the estate, I began getting calls almost every day. First from family. Then from lawyers they hired. At first, they tried being nice. Lacey called me, voice all sugar, "Jake, hey, listen. I know this must be overwhelming for you. I can help. I've got some experience with finances. Maybe you and I could go over things together." I told her no. She tried again 2 days later. Left a voicemail. "Just thinking, maybe Grandpa meant for you to help process things, not control everything." Aunt Rita sent me an email, subject line, "Friendly family chat." Inside, a wall of text. She said the whole thing was probably a misunderstanding, that maybe Grandpa had been confused. She said the family should vote on decisions to keep things balanced. I didn't reply. Then came the pressure. Uncle Stan tried to call the law office directly. Tried to get them to release financial statements to him. They refused, obviously. That same week, I got served at work, court papers. Aunt Rita, Uncle Stan, and Danielle had filed a petition contesting the will, claiming I'd unduly influenced my grandfather in his final year. I laughed when I first read it. I hadn't even seen the man since I walked out of that dinner 5 years ago. But still, I had to fight it. Had to hire a lawyer. Had to spend hours digging through email records, text messages, or lack of, timestamped documents, proving I hadn't been involved in anything shady. They made me go through months of stress just to hold on to something I never even asked for. And while all this was happening, I was still responsible for managing the estate, selling the rental property, preparing the house, clearing out furniture, listing items, settling taxes, dealing with the bank. One day while cleaning out the house, I found a stack of handwritten letters in a shoebox under the bed. Most were unopened birthday and holiday cards I had sent over the years. I recognized the envelopes, my careful block handwriting. None of them had been opened. Some were bent, shoved in the box like they didn't matter. I sat there on the old carpet for an hour, just holding one of the envelopes. I couldn't even remember what I had written inside. Probably something hopeful. Probably still trying to earn their love. Later that week, my grandmother died. The hospice nurse called me directly. Said she passed in her sleep. Said her last words were asking about Jason and Lacey. Not me. Even in death, she forgot me. The funeral was small, and no one looked at me. I stood near the back, said nothing. I left before the luncheon. The same week, the court ruled in my favor. There was no evidence of fraud or manipulation. The documents were legit. I was officially, legally, the one in charge. That's when the vultures showed up in full force. Danielle emailed me a long list of things from the house she claimed should go to her. An old jewelry box. A quilt. A set of china. Brian texted me asking if he could get an advance on his share. Uncle Stan called me and screamed so hard over the phone I had to hang up. They'd hated me for being invisible. Now they hated me for being the only one who mattered. The final straw came when I listed the house. It was an old ranch-style home, well kept but dated. I priced it fair, below market, actually. I wanted it sold fast. Jason showed up at the open house and started arguing with the realtor in front of strangers. Claimed I didn't have the right to sell it. Said it belonged to the family. The cops were called. He left swearing he'd make sure I got what I deserved. I stayed calm. I kept working through the estate, piece by piece. I followed the law exactly. I took nothing extra for myself, even though I could have. I kept records, made fair payouts, stuck to the documents. No shortcuts. No favors. I even set aside items I knew had sentimental value and sent them, certified mail, to the people who had asked, if I could confirm it had belonged to them. Even Danielle got the quilt. And yet, every week, I got more hate. My own mother told me over the phone that I was turning on the family. I told her the truth. They turned on me a long time ago. You just didn't notice. Then I hung up. But the part that changed everything was the final document. In a folder marked, personal, for executor only, I found a second letter. It was written by my grandfather. This time, dated just 1 month before his death. Jake, if you're reading this, you've probably dealt with a lot already. I want you to know one more thing. There are 2 safety deposit boxes. One in my name, one in your grandmother's. The keys are taped to the back of this letter. Open hers first. Then open mine. You'll understand why things had to be this way. Grandpa, I found the keys. 2 tiny brass ones on a string. What was in those boxes? I waited a few days before going to the bank. I'm not sure why. Maybe I was scared of what I'd find. Maybe I just needed a minute to breathe. But eventually, I walked into the small branch off 3rd Street in Bloomington, handed over the keys, and was escorted to a little private room in the back. The manager brought out 2 boxes. I opened my grandmother's first. Inside was a sealed envelope and a black velvet pouch. The envelope was addressed to "my children." The pouch had 6 rings, some with stones, some plain gold. A mix of wedding bands, birthstone rings, and old costume jewelry. I recognized my grandmother's style. Some of them she used to wear all the time. Others I'd never seen. I opened the letter. "To my daughters and sons, if you're reading this, I've already gone. I wanted each of you to have a piece of our history. The rings inside belonged to your father and me over the years. Please split them as you see fit. No fighting. Just love. Love, Mom." I sat back in the chair and stared at it. That was the grandmother I used to remember, sentimental, traditional, thoughtful. I didn't know what happened to her near the end. Maybe she changed. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she'd just always been different with me. Either way, I sealed the pouch and the letter, labeled it, and moved to the second box, my grandfather's. Inside were 3 things. A folder with "Read this first" written on it in thick black marker. A smaller envelope, taped shut. A manila envelope that felt heavy. I opened the folder. Inside was a typed letter, 2 pages long. It was dated 2 weeks before his death. No title. Just this: "Jake, there's something I never told anyone. Maybe I should have. Maybe it would have made things worse. I don't know. But you deserve the truth. You weren't forgotten that night at the party. I told your grandmother we needed to thank you. I told her you paid for everything. You know what she said to me? She said, 'He's not like the others. He makes people uncomfortable.' She didn't want your name mentioned. She said it would be weird if we brought attention to you. I fought her on it. We argued. But in the end, I didn't say your name. I shouldn't have listened to her. That was my mistake. And it wasn't the only time. There are things about your cousins, things I didn't know until it was too late. Money missing. Lies told. Documents forged. Open the smaller envelope. Show it to the lawyer. You'll understand. You were the only one who didn't take. You were the only one who walked away with dignity. That's why I gave it all to you. I hope someday they understand why. Love, Grandpa." My hands were shaking when I opened the small taped envelope. Inside were copies of bank statements, emails, and even a forged signature form. Sophie had accessed one of his accounts, transferred $7,000 to her boyfriend's account. Lacey had used his name to co-sign for a car loan and then defaulted. Jason had written himself a check using an old blank one he'd stolen from a drawer. It was all there. Evidence. Dates. Notes in my grandfather's handwriting, tracking it all. There was even a sticky note on one page that said, "Lied when I asked her about this." I couldn't believe it. The same people who had treated me like I was nothing, who told me I didn't belong, had been stealing from them for years. And somehow, I was the bad guy. The final envelope, the heavier one, was full of old coin collections and a small ledger. My grandfather had kept track of each piece. It wasn't worth millions, but it was clearly valuable. I checked the ledger. He'd written, "These are for Jake. He asked me about these when he was 10. He listened. He cared." I met with the estate lawyer the next day and handed over everything. He reviewed the documents and sat back in his chair, stunned. He said, "This changes a lot." And it did. Now, there was legal evidence that certain family members had already taken from the estate before Grandpa's death. That counted against any possible inheritance they might have received. And because of the way the trust was written, I had the power to reduce or remove distributions for bad actors. Guess who that included? Sophie. Jason. Lacey. And Danielle? Turned out, she had been writing herself small monthly caregiver checks for almost a year, $500 here, $300 there. But she hadn't taken care of him once. She lived 2 states away. It was fraud. I didn't announce it. I just filed it. Quietly. Legally. They didn't find out until the checks didn't come. That's when the screaming started. Texts. Calls. Emails. Social media messages. Even old-fashioned letters, handwritten in all caps like they were trying to make the anger louder. They called me a thief. A liar. A cold-hearted monster. Uncle Stan called and left me a voicemail, "You're dead to this family, Jake. You hear me? Dead." I saved it. I had all the power now. But I hadn't used it, not really. Not yet. Because there was still one decision left. One final choice that would make everything clear. And when I made it, there would be no coming back. Here's how it ended. When all the legal dust settled, I had full control over the estate. I had the right to make final decisions about distributions, asset liquidation, and disbursements. The lawyer made it clear, based on the evidence my grandfather left behind, I had cause to deny inheritances to certain family members and could refer the fraud to authorities if I wanted. I spent 2 weeks thinking. I didn't rush. I didn't act out of emotion. I made a list of everyone involved, who had stolen, lied, forged, or tried to manipulate. I made copies of everything, the bank records, the forged documents, the fake checks. I labeled everything by name and date, and I put it all in a thick binder. Then, I mailed it. Not to the police. To each person on that list. Certified mail. Signature required. No letter inside. Just the evidence. Their name on the cover page. Their actions in black and white. I let them see exactly what they had done. No spin. No hiding. Just truth. After that, I held a formal estate meeting. It was optional. I let them choose. 13 family members showed up. We met in the conference room of the lawyer's office. Long wooden table, coffee carafes, bottled water. I wore a plain gray button-up. I looked them each in the eye. My mom didn't come. She sent a text that morning, "Don't embarrass yourself further." I didn't answer. The lawyer started the meeting. He summarized the estate, assets, debts, what's left. Then he passed out sealed envelopes to everyone at the table. Inside each one was a statement of their portion, or lack of. There was silence as they opened them. Danielle read hers first. Her lips tightened. Lacey whispered, "What the F*** is this?" Sophie laughed, but it was fake. "This is a joke, right?" Jason stood up. "You're cutting us out? You little F*** ing weasel." I stayed seated. Calm. I said, "You all forgot me. You ignored me. You used them. And when I walked away, you acted like I was dead. Then you found out I was the one left standing, and suddenly, you all remembered my name." They started yelling. The lawyer intervened. Told them to leave if they couldn't act civil. One by one, they stormed out. Except for one person. Brian. He sat at the far end of the table. Quiet. He didn't look at me, just held his envelope in both hands. When everyone else had left, he walked over and said, "You did the right thing." I nodded. He walked out. The will allowed me to make one-time hardship distributions if I wanted. I used that clause, but not for them. I donated $20,000 to the local VFW in my grandfather's name. Another $10,000 to the library where he used to volunteer. I gave $5,000 to his old neighbor, a retired nurse who helped drive him to appointments when no one else would. I paid for the funeral expenses myself, then quietly had a bench installed at the cemetery under the maple tree near their plot. The engraving read, "Jake Whitmore, Executor. In honor of the quiet ones who don't forget." I kept the coin collection. Everything else, I gave away. As for the family, Sophie lost her job 6 months later. Word had gotten around about her little loan scam. Her boyfriend left her. Lacey ended up selling her car after defaulting again. She tried crowdfunding, but it flopped. Jason got hit with a small claim suit from another family member over an unpaid loan. That voicemail he left me? I submitted it during the estate process. The judge wasn't impressed. Danielle, well, turns out the IRS doesn't like it when you write yourself checks from a dead man's account and don't report it. She got audited. Hard. And my mom? I haven't spoken to her since that last text. I blocked her number after she sent me one final message. "You've torn this family apart." I didn't reply. But I wrote something down in my journal that night, "No. They did that." I just finally let it fall. Now, 5 years later, I live in Oregon. Quiet little town near the coast. I bought a small place with money I earned, none of it from the estate. I still have the coin collection. Sometimes I take it out and look through the pieces. I think about my grandfather. I don't forgive him completely. He could have said my name that night. But he tried, in the end. I don't hate him. I don't miss them. I still remember that night at the restaurant. Sitting at the edge of that long table, invisible. But now? Now they remember me. They have to. Because when everything was crumbling, and they needed someone to hold it together, I was the only one left with a name that mattered. And I didn't forget what they did. I just waited for the right time to answer. And I answered loud.